Chris Cornell didn't just sing songs. He bled through them, his voice raw and soaring, thunderous and delicate, became the haunted soundtrack of a generation that grew up with loss. Wrapped in distortion, he was the cathedral of grunge the soul behind. The scream of frontman who never seemed fully comfortable at the front, and even as the world praised his genius, there was always a quiet war being waged behind those heavy-lidded eyes. Chris Cornell was born in Seattle, Washington in 1964, a place that would later become the epicenter of alternative music, but his early years were filled with turmoil. A child of divorce, Chris suffered from crippling anxiety and depression from a young age. He once described himself as a loner who rarely spoke, disappearing into music to escape the overwhelming noise of reality. By the time he was a teenager, music wasn't just a refuge. It was the only thing keeping him afloat when Soundgarden exploded onto the Seattle scene in the late 1980s. It was Chris's tortured vocals that separated the band from its peers, while others were angry. Chris was anguished while others snarled. He cried out. He wasn't just a performer, he was a conduit. The pain he felt was the pain millions carried, and he gave it a voice. Tracks like Rusty Cage outshined, and the now iconic Black Hole Sun became anthems, not because they were catchy, but because they were confessions. Each line felt like a page torn from a diary. He never wanted to write, but success didn't heal him. At the height of his fame, Chris battled addiction, depression, and self-doubt. Despite the leather jackets and gritty riffs, he was fragile. After Soundgarden disbanded in 1997, Chris released a solo album that sounded like a man still searching. Then came Audioslave, his collaboration with the remnants of Rage Against the Machine. On paper, it shouldn't have worked, but it did. And not just because of talent, but because of Chris. Songs like A Stone and I Am the Highway weren't just rock staples. They were spiritual epiphies, and through it all, he never stopped experimenting, never stopped evolving. Temple of the Dog's tribute to his late friend Andrew Wood showed a softer side, a man capable of tenderness, even while drowning, and yet even when he found sobriety, remarried, and appeared to be thriving with his family, the shadows never truly left Chris. Cornell was the kind of man who could sell out arenas and still feel alone. He could sing to millions and hear only silence inside. In interviews, he'd allude to dark moments and inner battles, but rarely in full detail. His lyrics did the talking, laced with longing, sorrow, and the unspoken weight of someone fighting for light. May 17th, 2017 was supposed to be just another night. On tour, Soundgarden was back. The band was energized, but after the Detroit show, something shifted. Chris returned to his hotel, made a phone call to his wife, and hours later was found dead by suicide. The world froze. How could someone who had seemingly overcome so much, who was surrounded by love, fall so suddenly? His death reignited difficult conversations about mental health, the dangers of prescription drugs, and the myth that success equates to peace. Toxicology reports revealed multiple substances in his system, out of and among them, which some believe may have contributed to disorientation or worsened his depression. His widow, Vicky Cornell, insisted Chris was not himself that night. The change in his demeanor was sharp, alarming. He was slurring. He was paranoid something wasn't right. The debate over whether Chris's death was intentional, accidental, or preventable continues to this day, but what's undeniable is that the world lost one of its most gifted and most tortured voices far too soon. Chris Cornell left behind a wife, children, millions of fans, and a catalog of music that will outlive us all. But more than that, he left behind questions about how we treat our artists, how we talk about mental health, and how we often miss the signs even when they're screaming in song. He was a man of contradictions, a rock god who craved quiet, a father who sang lullabies, but also penned eulogies, a voice of power who sometimes felt powerless, and that contradiction is what makes his legacy so profound for those who knew him personally. Chris was introspective, gentle, a doing father who read books to his kids and worked Tirelessly on his craft for the rest of us, he was a reminder that beauty and pain are often intertwined. He gave everything to his music, his joy, his grief, his rage, his resilience. In doing so, he created not just songs, but sanctuaries for those who felt lost too. Since his death, tributes have poured in from fans, fellow musicians, and even presidents. His influence spans decades, genres, and generations, and yet there's a quiet ache that follows every replay of Fell on Black Days or Like a Stone. Because now we hear them differently. We hear the plea, we hear the exhaustion, we hear the man behind the myth, the man who screamed into the void and didn't always hear it echo. Chris Cornell's story isn't just one of tragedy, it's a call to awareness, a plea for compassion, a reminder that behind every artist is a human being, often carrying more than they show. His life was a masterpiece painted in dark shades, but it still glows, and in that glow we remember not just how he died, but how he lived, how he sang, and how he made us feel seen even in our loneliest moments.